welcome to the Standing Committee on Health and Social Development. Today is Thursday, June 18th, 2020. I would just like to bring this meeting to order. First thing we have to do is get an adoption for the agenda. Can I get one of the committee members to do that? Corey Deagle. I'd like to welcome everyone to the chamber today. We have in the committee, we have Heath McDonald, Trish Altez, Peter Bevan, who's substituting in for Hannah Bell, Corey Deagle, who's substituting in for Jamie Fox, and Brad Trivers are all members of the committee. In the chamber, we also have Michelle Beaton, Sonny Gallant, and Hal Perry. Today, what I'm going to do today is read through some different things. This is obviously to talk about motion number 75, and there's been some work done at this time in preparation. Again, this is just a guideline because of the tight time frame that this committee has to work in the to do its work in the next 12 days, I guess. So the consideration of the committee's work plan for motion number 75. Motion number 75 outlines the work the House has instructed the committee to undertake in regard to Bill number 37, an act to amend the Emergency Measures Act. At this point, operative clauses 2 and 3 outline the consultation that the committee should undertake. I would suggest to the committee that we discuss both matters, how the committee would like to approach this consultation, and also include in this discussion will be the scheduling. As indicated in motion number 75, the committee must report within 14 days of the passing of this motion, which is June 30th, 2020. If you're looking at your agenda, I'll just talk about A, operative clause 2, representatives from each department of the provincial government. This is, we're looking at consideration of invitations, consideration of scheduling, and consideration of time in meetings. We have circulated copies of the draft invitations to the departments. This is open for discussion and any changes can be made. The committee will also have to decide who the letter should be addressed to, the minister, deputy minister, or other representatives. Next, we will have to discuss how we want to hear from the departments, and if we're going to have public meetings, if we need to decide how to hear from everyone in an orderly and effective manner, given the timelines associated with the motion. Another consideration the committee may want to look at, given the deadlines to report, is whether the committee would like to implement stricter than normal timelines on debate. One option is outlined in the proposed schedule, which has been circulated to all members. I will open the floor for discussion, and the committee clerk can provide any additional details the committee may like at this time. Brad Trivers.
Well, thank you, Chair. And to your points, we have to be efficient if we're going to meet those timelines. And let me start by saying that when it comes to soliciting information from departments, I think it should always go to the minister and deputy minister, and definitely the deputy minister would be the one that would be most qualified to figure out who should come if we're summoning them. Another thought, and I'm not sure if you mentioned this as an option, but perhaps what we should do is we should just send a letter right away, and I think maybe you have copies here, but asking for written input from every department to start off with. And then if the committee reviews the response, they may decide that, in fact, we don't need to have a department in. That could actually help with the efficiency and the timelines as well. It wouldn't of course preclude any department from coming in, but if we sent letters, asked for a written response of legislation that's impacted, along the lines of the letter you have here, the examples, then maybe we can say we don't need to hear from these departments within committee. There's no point bringing them to question them. We got the information we need. Just a couple of thoughts there.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. That's a great place to start. Again, this is the time for the committee to talk about this. So I noticed Sonny Gallant.
Just a question, Chair. It says report back by June 30th. Was there a day? Correct me. Was there a day specified? Was it 14 days or 2 weeks?
Yes, I do believe it did say
that in the
on
motion?
on motion number 75, there was
Yeah.
a strict timeline associated with that motion.
14 calendar days, so it's not business days, it's calendar days. So that gives you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days, including the day you're going to have the report. So that's going to be fairly tight, is it not? Does the committee feel that this can all be done in 9 days?
Well,
Business days?
and I'll just, the clerks, again, we have two clerks, we have co-clerks on this file, and we've been doing work only in preparation that we were ready for whatever the committee decided. So that's what we've outlined some work to get to that target, and it's up to the committee to decide if, what direction we want to go in.
If I
Emily?
may interject, just the last operative clause of motion 75 reads, "Therefore be it resolved that the committee report to the House with its findings and recommendations within 14 calendar days of the passing of the motion." And the motion passed on this past Tuesday.
16th.
The 16th. So within the 14 days.
Peter Bevan Baker?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the comments from the Minister of Education on initiating this with written reports from every department, and I think that might facilitate us in getting this done in the prescribed time frame of the motion. I also think it's important that, for example, in the case of the Minister of Education, that he have a substitute here when that particular department is scheduled to be here, just so that there's an objectivity, and I think it will just keep it cleaner. It would. I'm not sure if there are any other ministers who typically sit on this committee, but that would. Okay, so the Minister of Communities and Fisheries, I would suggest the same protocol there. In terms of the timeframes of the motion, the restrictions placed in the motion were, we put a lot of thought into how long it should be, and of course I was the mover of the motion in the House. We did not know, actually, even when this motion was drafted, how long none of us knows how long this sitting is going to go. But we wanted a finite time frame, but also a reasonable time frame, and I think that the proposed timeline that the clerk and chair brought forward is actually very, very reasonable. I realize it's a lot of work and a lot of meetings, but I think it's entirely doable. So, but I would say, and again, I'm not a regular member of this committee, but should we hit the 29th or 30th and the report does not feel complete, or if members of the committee felt that further either public input or a department wants to come back, or for whatever reason, I think it would not be at all out of order for the committee to come back with an interim report to the House saying we actually need more time, because almost certainly we're still going to be here 2 weeks from now. I think that's a fairly safe assumption to make. So while I put 14 days in the motion, I would have absolutely no issue with the committee coming back with an interim report and requesting more time. That would not be an issue as far as I'm concerned at all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And we'll definitely take that into consideration. And I think today a lot of these decisions might be made by a motion too, just so we have, if we're suggesting things and during the discussion. Brad Trevors?
Thanks, Chair. And I understand where the leader of the opposition's come from here, Peter. I think what we're going to find is that the departments are very prepared to come forward with their information, and things should progress very quickly, depending on the amount of questions we asked. I think we should, we passed the motion, and I think we should stick to the 14 days if at all possible. I don't think we should start off on this committee by saying, hey, I don't think we can meet the 14 days, let's extend it. So I think we should use that as a hard deadline, and when the chair is moderating the discussion, we should have time limits and reasonable restrictions on maybe restrictions is too harsh a word, but time limits definitely on discussions, because as I said, I think if we get the written responses, it'll be easy to come in with very pointed questions for each department and really work through this well, because of course, when the legislation in question, Bill 37 was written, essentially, that's what was done internal to the government anyhow, right? So,
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. Based on that, I guess the clause where it says that the committee invites representatives from each department of the provincial government to present on, that's what we're discussing right now. What does the term present on? Is it email? Is that suitable? Or would we like, does present mean come in and present to the committee, or just receive feedback? And I guess I would like maybe further discussion on that, just so that we know that we can move forward with the rest of the timelines that have been prepared. So, yeah. Trish?
Thank you, Chair. I think that, the motion does outline or stipulate presentations, so I think that would certainly be the most preferable option as well. That gives us the option to ask questions, which I think is an important piece of understanding what is really happening or what the needs are for each department in this context. So my preference would be presentations, but certainly allowing and providing the option to also provide a written submission, because that can be very useful as well. However, I suppose, I would agree with Minister Trivers that we should be working toward the timelines that are stipulated in the motion, the 14 days. So I don't know how others feel, but we may be able to offer the option of a written submission if a department feels that they wouldn't be able to present within those timelines. But my preference would certainly be for presentations from each department if possible.
Perfect. Excellent. Would anybody else want to comment on that? No? Perfect. Okay, so can I take that as chair that we will go ahead with bringing in, following the schedule, because that's really important, that we have that outlined before we move forward. Brad Trivers?
So, again, going back, maybe I'll state this as a motion. That way we can just get it right out there and say, I move that as a committee, we write letters to each department stating the questions outlined in the handout that we have here, but not limited to those questions, asking each department to provide a written report to this committee as soon as possible. I would say even ideally for Monday, June 22nd meetings, so we can consider those reports and then decide who we really need to have in to present.
So we'll just let Emily write that. So we'll let Emily write that, and then what we'll do is we'll get, there's a motion on the floor. Emily, can you summarize?
Yes. So Minister Trivers moved that the committee write letters to the department with the written questions that are outlined in the handout, asking that departments provide this written report as soon as possible, ideally for Monday, June 22nd, and then decide who the committee needs to have in.
Does any of the committee members would like to speak on that?
Just
Brad
maybe,
Trivers?
I want to make sure that it's not the report or the written submission from the department is not limited to these questions.
Yes, okay.
Okay? And the other thing is, I want to make sure that while we're waiting through the reports, it does not preclude getting a department in to present, for example, tomorrow. We're not waiting until we get the reports before. We could invite someone in today to come in tomorrow, because there will definitely be departments that the committee wants to hear from and see a presentation. But I just want to make sure that the
Okay.
motion reflects that. We're not waiting till we have the reports back before we invite somebody in.
Okay, so to clarify, the motion is that the committee write letters to the departments with written questions outlined in the handout, but not limited to those questions, asking that the department provides a written report as soon as possible, ideally for Monday, June 22nd.
Exactly.
Okay.
Trish, Altus?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not necessarily comfortable, or I wouldn't prefer the sort of pre-filtering as suggested through written submissions and then deciding who we do or don't want to hear from, just because of the, seriousness of the act and what the consequences might be of, giving over power in certain ways to government. I think we have to think about that very carefully and take every opportunity to gain or gather as much information about that as possible. So I wouldn't want to hastily make a decision where we might lose the opportunity to ask questions of a department that might glean more information than any written report. So while I do think a written report is valuable, I won't be supporting this particular motion because I would like us to have presentations if possible from each department, big or small, depending on the impacts from this act.
Does the motion actually...
Brad Chivers?
Sorry, Chair. Does the motion actually say that with the written reports, we're not going to have presentations? We can do both.
Sorry, I thought the idea was we get the written submissions by Monday, so then we can decide who we do and don't want to hear from. I thought that was the purpose
And
of...
then we might have them all in, so it's not like, really the motion is to get the written reports.
I guess, can I clarify? So is the invitations to departments to come in dependent on the written reports, or no?
It's not.
Okay.
So can we, we'll just read it out slowly, what we have down for.
Sure. So, and I'm sorry, the motion is that I have written down that the committee write letters to the departments with the written questions outlined in the handout, but that's not limited to those questions, asking the departments to provide written reports as soon as possible, ideally for Monday, June 22nd.
Chair.
Brad Chivers?
I mean, if you really want to get the key, I would reverse that a little bit. So provide reports, including the written questions, but the not limited to piece should go after the reports anyhow. As long as the committee understands the intent of the motion, I think it's an important motion though.
So at this time, with unanimous consent, we might withdraw the motion and restate it as stated. Would that be okay? Yeah. You can talk.
Yeah, sorry. Just since perhaps if we can withdraw this motion, that requires unanimous consent by the committee, and then the motion can be stated in exactly the manner that
Okay.
we would like.
Well,
Yeah.
the way I stated it the first time was basically...
Or it could be amended as well, yes.
Could be amended, yeah. So, Brad Chivers?
All right. So what I'd like to move is that the committee...
So we have unanimous consent to withdraw this motion? And then we can.
Sure.
Great. Brad Chivers?
So what I'd like to move is that the committee write letters to the minister and deputy minister of each department, asking for a response to the questions on the handout. But the report should not be limited to the questions on the handout. It should be with regards to the topic of this motion, Bill 37, and that the departments aim to have those responses by Monday, June 22nd. And that's all. I'll just leave it at that.
So that's Peter Bevan Baker?
I appreciate the motion, Minister, and I'm wondering whether I could make a friendly amendment to also include an invitation to come in person as the draft invitation is here, rather than just a motion to answer written questions. Could we also simultaneously send out an invitation to those departments so that we can start setting up those appointments?
Brad Chivers?
And I mean, I support that amendment for sure. As long as, if we schedule them and decide we don't need them, we can always take them off the paper later. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So.
On the amendment?
We'll bring the amendment to the floor?
Yes, so
Yeah.
voting on the amendment.
So we'll vote on the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And it passes.
Now the motion as amended.
Now the motion as amended. All in favor? All in favor?
Could you just read out the motion?
Oh, sure.
Just for clarity.
Of course. Okay, so the committee write letters to the ministers and deputy ministers of each department, asking for a written response to the questions on the handout circulated, but not limited to the handout, and that the departments have responses to the committee by Monday, June 22nd, and that we also include an invitation to invite the departments to come in to present to the committee in person.
To present to the committee, yes. All in favor of, Brad Trivers?
I mean, I kind of threw that in, and I understand, Clerk, I'm not being very clear with my motion, so I appreciate your patience with me. But really, it should refer to the motion and Bill 37 in the letter as well.
Yes.
Because the handout doesn't necessarily do that, right?
Sure.
I mean, like, really, the point is to get them to respond to the motion referring Bill 37 to committee, including the questions on the handout, but not limited to that. And then with the amendment, of course, also asking for a time when they could come in and present. So,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to split hairs. I just want to make sure we get the robust response from the departments here.
Perfect. Trish Aldis?
Thank you, Chair. No, I think, splitting hairs is important because we want to make sure that we've got this right? In that same spirit, I'm wondering if just the way it's worded, just to make sure that we will be scheduling it's not just an invitation to choose whether or not they come and present. The expectation is that we would like them to come, and we will be scheduling each department. Is that the way that wording would be read? I just want to make sure.
Yes, and I would agree because, again, if you look, we're talking about this, but it affects all the work we've done thus far. So there's a schedule for everybody to come in. So we really need to know, based for our schedules as we get going, that they all have a time slot. So we're going to have to make sure we get this first part very, very clear. So
Great.
yeah, so the expectation is we would like to see them come in. Peter Bevan-Baker?
Thank you, Chair. I noticed in the first part of the motion presented by the Minister, he refers to the document that we have in front of us. I think if we simply refer to the letter that was also circulated, because it does mandate attendance at committee, so that would sort of cover Trish's concerns.
Perfect, yeah. Because at the time when this letter is open for the committee to look at every word of this, it was just we just drafted this based on their attendance. So, but I appreciate that comment. So, if it's important to read that letter at this time, and we'll get to that as well.
Sure, so I'll certainly make a note. It seems like it's the will of the committee that we will include in the letter that you're scheduled for a certain time, and that we will make reference to the specific operative clause in the motion that the motion requests, which is that they present on how the circumstances of COVID-19 have affected and are affecting the department in question, and how the proposed powers would affect the department in question, or the circumstances under which the use of the powers might be requested by the department. So in that letter, I can ensure that everything is there, so very much understood. So I guess the motion as amended, with the understanding that those will also be included in the letter. I guess we want to vote on the motion as amended?
Yeah.
Oh.
That sounds fine to me, Clerk. I appreciate your clarification.
Excellent.
Okay, so we'll vote again on was there a further amendment, or are we back to voting on the original motion?
As amended.
As amended. So we'll vote on the original motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
As amended. Great. Okay, thank you very much. So moving on to
Chair.
Brad Trivers.
Also, I just want to make sure that once these letters are drafted, they get sent out in a timely fashion as well. Like, we don't have to meet as a committee to go and review the letters and all that kind of thing. I'm looking for input from the committee. I don't know if we need to review the letters, and if we do, is email maybe an appropriate format to do that? And Chair, I don't know what you think.
Yeah. Well, time is of the essence. I don't think at this time there's any point in using our mail service, as good as it is. I think that we need to send the letters directly through email, and require, maybe we'll put in there that this letter requires an immediate correspondence upon receiving.
And Chair, if I might?
Emily?
In accordance with the motion that was just passed, if this draft letter that is before everybody, if this part of the letter works, I can certainly draft something that would include that the written response is requested by Monday, June 22nd, and that also you will be scheduled for this particular time. And these will be going out today and we can definitely circulate to the committee members by email today as well, so everyone sees what it looks like, but they'll be going out to departments today.
Brad Travers?
I mean, just to be clear, there's two pieces. One is the review of the committee and the approval via email, and then the second piece is to send the letter via email or electronically, as you say. So I would agree with both of those if the rest of the committee's in agreement.
And maybe each committee member will be CC'd potentially?
Yeah, we can do that as well.
Yeah.
Certainly.
So we'll know the timelines around it. Anybody else? Good discussion?
Chair, if I might
Emily?
just jump in to talk about the scheduling. So in the committee proposal with the calendar and then the different departments outlined, I guess I just want to see with the committee if those timeframes work. And we started with the Department of Justice and Public Safety as they are that department is the promoter of the bill. And then after that, we just went alphabetical as the departments are titled. And then I guess I just wanted to touch on the time frame. So we've kind of allocated about an hour per department. And this is up for discussion by the committee, but this is kind of an outline of something that kind of would help us to move through the different departments in a timely manner, is that we would have a 10-minute opening statement by the departments, followed by 25 minutes of questions by committee members, and could be divided up 5 minutes each, 5 minutes at the discretion of the chair for other members of the House that might be in attendance of these meetings, and then kind of a 5-minute buffer, which brings us to 45 minutes. And then time for a recess, which would allow us to clean every desk that a new department person is coming in at, so just so that we could meet all the different public health and safety guidelines. So that is kind of a proposal of how we could potentially move through all the departments in a timely manner next week, but certainly open for discussion by the committee.
Yeah. Trish, all this?
Yeah, no, I think this is a very clear and makes a lot of sense, a well-thought-out plan. I guess want to clarify then that the letters sent to departments will tell them what their, the plan is in terms of their scheduled date, and then, yeah, okay.
Yes,
great.
so we'll indicate that it's 10 minutes of opening statements followed by questions. And that it would be very appreciated if they could follow the outline.
Wonderful, thank you.
And we might add too, if a department does not use their full time or the questioning is not there, we might be able to save some time. So we'll indicate to the other presenters to be ready here in 20, 25 minutes in advance, just so we can keep it going. And then you have a chance to look at that 15 minutes of cleaning and prep. If we don't need it, if we can get in and out, we can keep things moving. So, any other comments there?
So is the schedule of our first meeting being tomorrow at 2 o'clock, and then Monday from 9 until 12, a break for lunch, Monday afternoon 1 to 4, Tuesday morning 9 until 12, and then Thursday morning beginning at 9, and then potentially if there's, I only have one presenter on the schedule for Thursday at this point, so the committee could then perhaps begin its discussion on its report if it felt like it was ready at that time. So I guess, is there any discussion on those timelines there?
I might just add as chair, we thought hard about this, and we obviously started with Justice on Friday. We have not corresponded with Justice. They have done the work on this bill, so it was our thoughts, and it was a little bit outside the committee's realm, but we thought they would be ready to present. So 2 o'clock, and as well, we talked about keeping them alone on Friday if they can come in case we need some more time with Justice. So that was the intent around Friday. So that would be great if they could come in and have a little bit more time with the committee to explain things. So, yeah. Peter Bevan-Bigger?
Thanks, Chair. Can I just make one suggestion that we provide the departments with the amended bill, because there are already a number of statutes that are excluded, just so they don't bother going through those particular bills in order to look for concerns? Thanks.
We discussed that today.
Okay,
so,
great.
So they will be provided with this motion 75, the original bill, and all of the amendments that have been presented and/or passed in the House to date so far.
Great.
So they'll have all that information.
Thank you, Clerk.
So we will stick with this, and based on the responses from the department, we will get back to you if there's a time slot that's open, but we'll keep things fluid with this tight timeframe.
So perhaps on the scheduling, we'll go ahead with those public meetings, issuing the notices and whatnot, and then as we get closer to the end, maybe the start of next week, we can talk about when the committee might meet to talk about its report, but we'll get these notices and all the invites to the departments today.
So that would wrap up the Section A, 3A, in our discussion in our agenda. And Brad Trivers?
And maybe this is something that you're already taking into account, Clerk, but it might be useful to expedite your process and scheduling, to work through the Executive Council office, because, then that would help you, instead of having to go out to each individual department to confirm the schedule. That's something that they might be able to help you coordinate. I'm not saying for sure, but it might be worthwhile pursuing that
Perfect.
avenue.
Thanks for the
Save you some
suggestion.
time.
And that's a great suggestion. And would it be okay if the committee just attached, are we able to attach that?
Sure, so I guess the other side of that is that we can attach the schedule to the departments, and if they felt if the committee was okay with this, if they had to swap for whatever reason, that if they are responsible themselves to do those swaps, that just let us know, and then the committee can be prepared for who's coming in. If that's okay with the committee, we can do that? Okay, great.
Any further discussion there? Great suggestions. So that will conclude our business in 3A. If it's okay with the committee.
Sorry, Chair.
Oh, Brad Trivers.
One other thing I wanted to raise is, with this schedule, does it impact other standing committee meetings?
So this schedule does not. There is a meeting on Wednesday, June 24th next week, but we've worked around that, and we still have lots of time to be able to consider the work that this committee has to do. So no, we can work around the other schedules of the different committees.
Okay, no, that's fine with me, thank you.
Excellent. So I'll be moving on to B, so 3B. Operative Clause 3, solicit and consideration of input from the public. The things we'll be talking about is consideration of invitations and consideration of advertisement. The committee is also charged with soliciting and considering input from the public, and the motion indicates that this can be in the form and manner that the committee deems appropriate. The first consideration may be how the committee hears from the public, given the timelines associated with the motion and the current public health measures in place. I have suggested perhaps that the committee seek written feedback from the public. However, this matter is up for the committee to consider and decide. We have circulated copies of the draft invitation for individuals and groups. Would the committee like to target specific groups and individuals and to provide their input for the committee on this matter? If so, we will need to decide on which individuals or groups to invite to do so. Another suggestion in our usual manner of targeting public input, which is to advertise for submissions on the Legislative Assembly website, social media, as well as ads in local newspapers. I will open the floor to discussion, and the committee clerk can provide any additional details the committee may like. So we're looking at, this is a extremely fast timeline, and we want, this is public consultation, we want to hear from the public on this. Do we as a committee reach out to people? Is advertising going to be enough? Can we move and get solicit the information back as quickly as we can, because we want to definitely engage the public. So any suggestions at this time how we do that efficiently? There's the option, Emily and I discussed today, there is the option that the public, we could make coming into the building work, even though the building is closed. It would be tight in and out timeframes, or that's an option. but we just thought, would it be better to have written submissions at this time? So we're just trying to be open and put all the options on the table at this time. So any feedback on that at this time would be appreciated. Peter Bevan-Baker?
Thanks, Chair. I like the proposal of starting again, sort of similar to what the Minister suggested with departments, starting with a request for written submissions. I suspect that is, particularly with the attention that this bill has received in the public, if we're going to go with social media, Legislative Assembly website, and newspapers, that we will indeed reach the audience who is concerned about that. So I don't actually have an issue with perhaps not limiting it to written submissions. I see we have a little bit of wiggle room in terms of the committee timelines between the 25th and 30th when we have to actually present report in the legislature. So if there, for whatever reason, either the committee decides or an individual in the public would prefer to make an in-person presentation, and we're, as you just said, that's possible to do here, I think that would still be, we'd still be able to accommodate that in the time frame. So I'm fine with starting with written submissions and but allowing the option of an in-person presentation should people want to do that. Thank you, Chair. Thank
you very much. Great suggestion. Perfect. Anybody else?
Chair?
Assembly?
I just realized I do have a draft ad that we would have for the outreach. I didn't print off copies, so I'm just going to go grab those copies and I can circulate to everyone. If we want to take a look at what an ad might look like and get approval on that today, we can get that out as soon as possible.
Absolutely. And again, the draft letter is there in your package. So this is a draft letter for the committee to look at. If you like the wording, or it's a lot to explain in a short period of time, I think the clerks have done a great job with that
letter. In addition to this, we can also put together a web page on the Legislative Assembly's website that would include all the information about the motion, and it would also include copies of the bill and the amendments and how members of the public could contact us with their feedback. So that is in the works and something that as soon as we have everything kind of agreed to, that we can make live so that the committee can start to receive that input as soon as possible.
letter. And may I suggest, we had talked about this before. I mean, I remember we had Brad Trivers and myself had a good discussion about the use of social media to modernize our legislative assembly perhaps, and this might be a good opportunity to, if anybody feels comfortable on the committee, it's important enough that we need you to reach the public, and the consideration of a short video on your social media at this time to get as much feedback as we can is I think is a good one. So I plan on doing one as chair with the blessing of the committee, just so that we can engage the public at this time. Yeah. So. Corey Deagle?
What about, I don't know if it's here, a press release maybe or something, saying that we're seeking, might get some media coverage, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a great idea. We can draft that pretty easily, and if the committee likes, that can go out probably maybe tomorrow.
Press release, yeah.
If that's agreeable to the committee members?
Excellent, yeah.
Coming from you as chair, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Tricia Altez?
Thank you, Chair. Yep, no, that all sounds great to me. I'm wondering about the process of getting the information that's submitted to the committee in a timely manner. So rather than kind of waiting until the end and we get everything that's submitted, would we be able to get that on a daily or every second day basis, sort of what's being shared from the public, so that we can keep that moving?
Certainly, if that's something the committee would like, we can do that on a daily basis so that everything that we have gotten to date, you'll receive. If by email is preferred, then we can make sure that everyone gets that information by email daily. So that, everyone can kind of consider things as we move along and that it's not one giant, pile of information at the end.
Perfect. Excellent. Great suggestions. Yeah. Brad Trivers?
I just wanted to clarify the process again here. So if I'm someone, a member of the public that wants to provide input, I would go to the Legislative Assembly website, and there would be an online form where I could submit my input. Is that right?
So yes, we actually are able to do an online feedback form on our website, so that would be one way. We usually share these ads on Facebook, in the newspapers, our Twitter, and the website. So certainly there'd be a feedback page on the Legislative Assembly's website. We could receive feedback by mail, although given the time frame, I think someone would have to submit something very quickly by mail. We also have email, fax, or someone can drop something off to the offices here as well. So there are 5 different ways that someone could submit their feedback, theoretically.
Brad Trivers?
And I would assume if it was submitted electronically, or maybe even if it wasn't, you could put in electronic form and actually put the submitted feedback public on the website for the public to view. That's what we do, for example, when we're soliciting public feedback on some of the initiatives within the government departments, right? And like, for example, the water withdrawal regulations, these sorts of things. And I think it'd be good. And then anybody who wants to see all the feedback, go to the Legislative Assembly website, see anything that's in by email, by letters, by fax, or online, and it's all right there. It just seems like a good way to go. And then to Trish's point, you don't have to worry about sending us all emails because it's all there on the website for us to see as well as the general public. And it should make it a little more efficient.
I think it's Trish Altes?
I mean, that's an interesting idea for sure. I don't have a problem with that. I guess the only question would be that people would still have the option of submitting in private if they chose that they didn't want their comments to be made public. I think we need to give people the option of doing that.
Brad Trivers?
I don't know if we need to have private submissions. I think anonymous submissions would be okay. But if you're submitting to a standing committee, then I think the assumption should be that you want your comments to be seen.
Trish Altes?
To make assumptions about other people's intentions or what they're comfortable with, but I suppose an anonymous submission option would be fine.
Brad Trivers?
The other thing, of course, the second part is if people do want a request to present in person. And so I would suggest maybe you have another form to fill out to make that request.
Sure. And if we, I might just add, and if we do, we talked about, maybe extending this, and that would be one of my main considerations would be if we received a lot of public input and opportunities, people wanted to participate in this. So, but yeah, we can definitely look at that. My question would be to Emily is are we able to do that kind of, is the Legislative Assembly able to work that in this short period of time?
That is something I'm gonna have to check to see if it would be, what kind of an undertaking it would be to be able to post submissions from the public to the website. I would just have to look into see if that's a possibility in the kind of tight time frame. I guess the next question is the committee deciding that if we receive public feedback that everything automatically will be posted, or can people opt out? And if they can't, do we want to include something that makes people aware of the fact that when they submit something, it will become public automatically? So I guess there's just, a question of how we would receive, or indicate to people that their submissions will be made public automatically, or is the committee okay with people being able to opt out of that option?
Yeah, and I mean, they're really, we're asking them to submit to the standing committee, this standing committee. It makes no, we wouldn't tell them that it's going public. So I think that has to be the first most important role. And
Chair, perhaps what I can do is see if it's actually, if it is possible to be able to post to the website. I mean, the committee is meeting tomorrow, so that's something that I could bring back to the committee, get an answer on, and then we can have maybe a discussion at that point on posting things to the website if we find out that it's possible to do so in the tight time frame.
yeah, perfect. Trish Altes?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and I'm just, thinking this through as suggestions are being made, and then now I'm, wondering if we do allow anonymous posts, if things are made public, then you could easily have, let's say, the same person posting several times and we'd never know. So there, I mean, that's problematic as well, I guess. What are, maybe the minister can explain some examples, sorry, where this has been used before. I might have, that might help me understand.
Brad Trivers?
So I think probably the first example was with the Water Act itself under the previous administration, where you could submit input and it was published on the website. More recent examples would include the Water Act regulations. I mean, we're planning to do the same thing for the consultations on the elected school boards, for example, in the department. If you go to the website right now, the government website, I think maybe the Water Act is a good spot to start. They really went all out on that one. And in fact, I think if people did presentations in person, they posted either the audio or video of that presentation as well on the website. So if you wanted a comprehensive review of everything, it was all there for people to see.
Tricia Altas?
Yes, thank you. And I mean, of course, if someone presents, they're going to expect that people are going to know who they are. That's part of that whole thing. So yes, sharing a video would make sense. I think in my head, you know, what possible barriers we might be creating for people to share their input, you know, if there isn't an option for people to not have a public comment, I don't know if that might be a barrier for folks, but, you know, I guess I'm just thinking it through. Maybe it's not a huge issue. I don't know. I'll defer to others in the community and see, or just hear what others think about that.
Brad? Sure.
I mean, yeah, I mean, at some point, the committee's going to have to see the comment. So, you know, your point, I think your point about people submitting multiple comments is one that, you know, you could pad the numbers, but frankly, I'm not worried about that. I think I'm just worried about getting the feedback. And in my experience, I find people are very reasonable, and the odds that these sort of things are going to be gamed are very low. Like, for example, I put my cell phone number on every single fridge magnet. I handed out during three different election processes I've been through, and I don't, my cell phone doesn't ring off the hook day and night, you know what I'm saying? Because people are very reasonable, and I don't think they're going to game the system. I think we need to have faith in people, and it'll be fine.
Tricia Altas?
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not suggesting at all that we shouldn't have people provide input. I think that's incredibly important. I'm thinking about the process and what might possibly create barriers for folks wanting to provide input. So let's say an employee from a department wants to provide input, let's say directly, and they can't because they're not comfortable sharing their name, is one thought that I might have. So, sorry?
We're going to allow anonymous.
No, I know but there's a balance there. I'm just, you know, we're.
To your point, that's a good example. Because what if they had information from within a department that was part of their submission that they didn't want the public to see?
Have to go through the chair, everybody.
Sorry.
Sorry, Chair.
This is a good debate. Normally, we would allow this debate to continue, but we don't have time.
Okay.
We have 14 days.
Yep.
So we have to keep it as simple as we can. And I think that we'll work within we'll let the legislative workers see if we can add something to reflect this. And then they are submitting to the committee. This is public consult, and we will make sure that their information is noted at this time and try to find the best solution with that, if it's okay with the committee. Yeah, Peter Bevan, Baker.
Thanks. I appreciate what you just said, Chair. I'm wondering whether there is a potential list of individuals or stakeholders that we have planned to send this letter out to. The only place I can imagine where we absolutely should send it is the Legislative Committee of the Law Society. They have a committee specifically to review pieces of legislation that come forward from government. So, I know in New Brunswick, I think it was a law professor at UNB came forward with some comments and critiques of their bill, which of course was ultimately pulled. So I think it would be useful to reach out to that committee of the Law Society here.
Great suggestion. And then we will, that's a great suggestion. And maybe it might be that we send them correspondence urging them to take part in the public consultation. I'm not sure what the committee would think of that, instead of you know, just how do we invite them? We want to hear from them. You know, those type of things. And anybody is allowed to obviously take part, but I'm just trying to figure out the way in which we can make that work. Peter
Thank you,
Brevin?
Chair. I was just imagining that's what the letter here actually is designed to do, just to seek input.
Perfect.
Written input specifically.
Yeah. Is there anybody else, while we're on that train of thought for the committee, is there anybody else at this time that the committee members might suggest we document about this correspondence should go to in Prince Edward Island or abroad, other than that suggestion by Mr. Baker? Great.
Chair, may I make some confirmations with the committee? before we-
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sure. So a letter will be sent to the Legislative Committee of the Law Society of Prince Edward Island. Is that something that the committee has agreed they would like to do specifically?
Brad Trivers?
I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and I don't have a problem sending the letter. I think, you know, I mean, the assumption of the motion that sent this bill to this committee is that it's of great import, and something tells me if the Law Society and other groups feel that it is of grave import and they need to weigh in, they're going to weigh in, they're going to be paying attention. But I don't have any problem sending that, but I mean, I don't think we need to go around soliciting input from various groups. They especially a Law Society, if they have concerns about this, they're watching this, they're looking at it, and they're concerned. So anyhow, I'll support sending a letter. So, yeah.
You guys want to comment on that? Okay, perfect.
All right.
Did you need to?
Okay, so the letter will go to the Law Society Legislative Committee,
Email.
email. And then on the ad, it is to seek a written submission from individuals or groups, and it has the due date of June 25th, which is next Thursday. So people can submit by mail, email, fax, and we also will be setting up a feedback comment section on our website. So is there anything that the committee would like to add to this ad? It will also be translated.
So, okay. Okay, no, so
And so we can post to the website, our social media pages, and is it the committee's wish that it be posted in the, I guess, newspapers on the island?
yes?
okay.
Okay, confirmation, perfect.
Okay. Sorry, Chair.
Trish?
Not reopening that discussion, but just should we have in here that their submission will be made public? Should they know that right away, or is that?
Good question. I don't think we need to do that at this time.
I mean, if I were submitting something, I'd want to know if it was going to be made public, that's all, just.
I think, then we'll talk about it again. Is this going to be public? The submissions are going to be to the committee solely for us to accept their input, or is it going public at that time? So that's just the question. I think I might have talked about maybe just going to the committee and soliciting their feedback. It's important so that we can help structure and work towards the motion at the end. So, but it's open for discussion.
Yeah, sorry, Chair.
Trish Altes?
Yeah, and I fully may have misunderstood what Minister Trivers was saying. I thought that he was saying everything would be made public through online. Is that is what you're saying? Okay. So that's we just have to decide one way or the other. That is an important point, I
Brad
think.
Trivers?
I'm all about openness and transparency, so that's why I suggested it, and I support that.
Yeah.
But I'll do the will of the committee.
Yeah. Okay, Trish and then Peter.
I'll just quickly say whether we make them public or not is, we'll decide, but if we do decide to make them public, we need, I think, to put it in the ad so people know that their submissions will be made public. That's, yeah.
Yeah. Peter, Bevins?
What she said, Chair. Just there needs to be a disclaimer in there, I believe, so people are aware that it is going to be a public document.
And as chair, I'm just thinking ahead for timeline purposes, and that we don't have the answer to that because we don't even know if the legislative assembly work behind is going to be open to that. So I would say, as chair, just for speed of purposes, so that they don't waste time, that no, it's not going to be public until, Brad Trivers?
I mean, I'm just saying, we're a public committee, unless we're going to review all of the submissions in camera and then make decisions as a committee which ones we're going to release for public review. I think we should just release them all. That's my opinion, but it doesn't seem to really match the normal mandate of a public standing committee. Like there's not too often, the Kirk can correct me, where you have in-camera presentations from groups to committees, right? So, and I think written submissions and online submissions would all be under that same umbrella. And if we make them anonymous, that's one more level of, privacy protection, if you want to call it that, so.
So I think the disclaimer might say we may make them public, and if we cannot use technology efficiently to upload, we will read them out at the start of every standing committee when we get them, just to make sure that we're being public. But my only thing is I do not want to get bogged down with internal website design and such, so.
So, sorry, I've just heard, it is possible, we can post under the committee website section, written submissions. So I guess it'll be up to the committee to decide if we do want to post them to the website, and then how we would let people know if that's the case. So up to the committee to decide, and can people opt out if they would like. So it is possible to post.
Okay, okay, that's good. Trish?
Yeah, no, thank you for that clarification, Emily, and I think that would be the preferred option, that the default is they would be made public. We would let people know that, but people would also have the option to opt out of that if they don't want their submission made public. I think that's probably the best of both worlds.
Excellent.
So, Chair,
Brad Trivers?
in the case that a submission is not made public, who gets to see it?
The committee.
Only the committee? And just the committee?
Well, no, we're asking them for submissions. We can read them. We can read them here. My only concern was just timing and just the additional work, but Emily just suggested that they're able to do that. So,
Every day.
sir?
Well, I think, the Legislative Assembly posts documents to the website. That's what they do, whether they're all sorts of house records, right?
Sure.
So anyway, yeah, sure, it's all good.
So we will add the disclaimer that their information will be public.
Because it's a public committee.
Corey Deagle?
No, good.
Trish?
Very quickly, my concern is that we don't create any barriers for anyone who wouldn't be comfortable with that. So we are legislators, we are used to what we are being said made public, and that is absolutely the right thing to do for transparency and accountability. But anything that would create a barrier from someone being able to share information, we should do something about. So that's where I'm coming from on that.
Good discussion. Emily? Oh, you were just gonna sidebar.
I'm just wondering what the decision of the committee is.
What is the decision of the committee?
Do you need a motion or?
Do we need a motion?
Yes, however, I guess I'm just I just need to know so that we can get wheels in motion of what the committee wants. Are we posting? Are we not? Are we posting but people can opt out? Just some parameters of what us as the Legislative Assembly staff supporting the committee would do.
Okay. I believe that any submissions will be public, and if we will be accepting anonymous submissions as well.
So anonymous submissions would not be posted?
They would be posted,
Okay, everything posted.
yeah. But that's open to discussion? No.
Okay.
Okay, so any suggestions to help Emily out with her question?
Yeah, definitely. No, my understanding of sort of what we were suggesting was, or what Emily had just said, would be that the default is that it would be made public. We would let people know that, but they can choose to opt out of the public option, in which case it would just be submitted to the committee members for their consideration. No anonymous.
Yeah. Is everybody okay with that?
I still just.
Brad Travers?
So we're only going to allow submissions that are made in secret to be seen by the committee and reviewed in camera? I mean, we're a public committee. It just seems that it's not very open and transparent. And what if we make decisions based on these secret submissions, and then we can't say why we made the decision? Like, it doesn't sit well with me, but I'll go with the committee. We need to get a move on this, so, yeah.
No, we could make a motion at this time. Would anybody, the committee members like to make a motion at this time around this topic?
So what I'm hearing from the committee is that the default is that submissions will be made public. So they will be posted under the Standing Committee on Health and Social Development website. People can opt out of this if they would like, and those submissions would only be circulated to members of the committee. Is that what the committee would like
Trish?
to?
I actually think, okay, here's another compromise, perhaps. There's no anonymous submissions, but if someone can opt out of having their name made public, but we'll know what it is that okay?
I think that's fantastic.
Okay. All right.
Great. Excellent.
And to confirm, the ad will ask for written submissions to the committee by June 25th, 2020, which is next Thursday. Is that agreeable to the committee?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. There's consent with that.
Great.
So we're moving right along. We're almost done here, I do believe. So do we want to move to, is there any further discussion on that before we move on? I would just, again, the list of questions that we had were a guide. So that's really important that anybody on this committee can look at that list of questions and make sure that it's okay. So, number 4. Brad Travers?
I think it's really important that we keep the questions as relevant as possible to the motion and to Bill 37 in particular. And we're talking about the ability to amend legislation. There's all kinds of other abilities within government to, for example, change regulations at Executive Council, these sorts of things. I think the questions are going in the right direction, but if you say, how has COVID-19 affected the operations in your department? That's not necessarily legislation related, right? There's many operations that are governed by regulations and not legislation. I think it should be really focused on legislative changes. And I'm not sure all those questions actually focus on legislation.
Perfect. This is great comments. So we're looking at the potential questions for the department as just a guide or a starting point with that. So,
Chair?
yes, Brad Travers?
Like if I was looking at these sample potential questions, C, D, and E are definitely legislation related. A and B are more general that I don't think really fit with the mandate of this particular motion at committee.
Yeah. Trish?
Yeah, sorry.
It's nodding. I agree.
Perfect. So is it okay to strike A and B? Would the committee be okay with striking A and B and just focusing on C, D, and E in there? Peter Bevan?
I'm just wondering, the operations of a department they can be restricted by legislative or statutory situations. So I'm wondering whether we could amend that. I'm not trying to split hairs here, but how has COVID-19 affected the operations in your department as a result of statutory considerations or something like that?
Perfect. So, right. As a result of statutory considerations. Brad Travers?
I mean, I think if we just change the wording of C a little bit, it would cover off operations as well. Instead of, what could your department not do due to legislative barriers? Or, what impact on your department did legislative barriers have when it comes to improving services for Islanders, or something like that? Which would include operations, include all impacts, And the other thing is, I mean, these are guiding questions. I would say the departments are very, very much well aware of the motion, the intent of the motion, the Bill 37, they've already gone through this. So we probably don't need to worry about providing a lot of direction to the departments, you know what I'm saying?
Thank you, Brad.
Chair, I just want to say I agree with the minister. Thank you.
To confirm, so does the committee still want to send a list of questions, or is the second operative clause in the motion describing what the representatives are invited in to talk about enough to send to the departments
Peter,
for their
Brad?
invite?
So when I said I agreed, I agree that C, D, and E are good starting
Okay.
points, and I think it is a good idea to offer some guidance here, starting guidance, but also I'm sure the departments are indeed very much aware of what's going on here. I just agreed with the fact that we can roll A into C.
Perfect. We'll
Thank you.
combine A and C, and then we'll have the amended C, D, and E.
That's what I would suggest.
Excellent.
Perfect, thank you. Just- Do you want, Brad Travers?
I mean, looking at E, that is, if we're looking at what sections, it could potentially be a lot of work for the departments. Because there are the department's responsible for a lot of acts, and so if you have to go and review every act to determine what section, I mean, that was one of the reasons that we had the bill on the floor in the first place, because there are, depending on the state of affairs within an emergency, it's hard to determine exactly what sections actually might need to be amended, and to go through every single act to determine every single section is very difficult. I just wanted to bring it out there as more of a statement. I mean, I think we can ask that. I don't want to be placing, how would you say, undue expectations on the departments on work they should do. I think if we have the list of acts, and maybe as opposed to pointing to exactly what sections and why, maybe indicating what acts might need to be amended. Is that, or I'm not sure what, we could be here an awfully long time if we get into reviewing every single act that might need to be amended if there was a state of emergency. And I'm open for discussion on this. I'm just expressing some thoughts,
Peter Baker?
I appreciate the concern that the minister has brought, and that in our discussions during the drafting of our own amendments to the bill prior to it coming to the floor here, there were two schools of thought, one being that we should list acts that could be excluded from any amendment, and the other school of thought that no, we need to specify the acts that actually can be amended, which would be a much shorter list. But there's a lot of work required in the latter. I mean, originally the bill was you can amend any act to any extent you want for as long as you like, and that was a little bit of an overreach. We've come a long way since then, but the purpose of sending this to committee and allowing the departments to look at each act was specifically so that they could do this work. And I think the only way that they will know whether an act needs to be amended is to look at each section. You can't look at the title of an act and assume that it needs and does not need to be amended. So I think some departments will have a bigger job than others. I fully admit that, but I do think that they should be able to come back with at least some guidelines as to which acts need to be included.
Brad Travers?
And to some extent, what sections of what acts might need to be amended depend on the emergency itself and what the emergency is and what's happening, right? I mean, because different emergencies require, different responses. And I think that was probably debated on the floor here as well in the legislature. So I just wanted to make that statement. I'm not disagreeing with the member, but I do want to make sure that we're not putting undue expectations and asking for an undue amount of work from the departments at this time.
Great. So that's a good discussion. We talked about rolling A into C.
Yep.
Was the last,
Correct.
and maybe striking B from the list of
Striking B.
questions. Correct. Would I be correct in saying that? And combining A and C, so then we would have basically a 1, 2, and 3 guiding questions for each of the departments. And then that way we might be able to get some consistent answers coming back if they followed those guidelines. And it would also help the departments when they're coming in to facilitate the discussion, because when they're here, they're only going to have a certain amount of time. So, Corey Deagle?
What's the plan when they are here? I know I see the timeline down below, but, so they get 10 minutes to, so basically they're just coming to answer questions.
If you think that they need more time we can extend that opening statement. Basically.
But you can't, because we
Corey Deagle?
we have departments coming in every hour.
Yeah. Yeah. So the idea is.
We've been here for an hour and
Corey Deagle?
15 minutes, and we can't even figure out how to advertise, and how are we gonna have a whole department in to discuss what acts it affects, and everyone asks questions. I just don't see how it works, but maybe it will.
If you can, this is the time to suggest a better way, because we have 14 days to do this work. So if you have suggestions, feel free. Trish Altes?
Yeah, I have a suggestion. Perhaps in the letters that we send to the department, we can let them know the planned timelines, and if they feel they're going to need longer than 10 minutes, to let us know, and we will plan accordingly around that. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah. Sure, yeah.
Sorry, I'll just jump in. I guess if we, and that's definitely possible, if we send out the letters at the, pretty much the same time to all the different departments with their time slots, if someone is requesting additional time, it will kind of bump things back a little, but that's up to the committee on how they'll want to proceed. But I just mentioned that for just kind of for what it's worth.
Yeah. Trish?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, it could certainly bump things back a little, or we might, if there was one department that, needed a lot more time than 10 minutes, they could go at the end of the week instead. Like, we could shift things around depending. We don't know. Maybe they're all comfortable with that, right? We don't know. So that would be my suggestion. Gather the info and then go from there.
But the member's right. We're up against a tight time frame. We're trying to do a lot of work in a short period of time. So as committee members, you might have to schedule in an additional half an hour at the end of. Never mind. We'll do our best for sure. Yeah.
But certainly, I'll make a note in the letter that if departments feel they need additional time, to let us know as soon as possible, and we'll work to make that work in the schedule that we have.
Perfect. Is it okay? We're under the gun here, so I just want to make sure, wrapping up, if I'm allowed to head that way. Discussion of schedule was number 4, but we kind of talked about that quite a bit.
So tomorrow at 2.
Sir, Corey Deagle?
Is it possible that, we could ask the Poverty Committee to move? Or is that your committee, Trish?
I'm the chair of that committee. That is absolutely possible. I think we have the, sort of a good proposed timeline here that may work out just fine, but I think that's, something that could be considered if needed.
It's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I?
Corey Deagle, sorry.
It's just like Monday mornings it's constituency day, and when we're in the house especially, it's the only day that, I already have meetings planned for Monday morning, and so I've already put off a couple times. And is it possible that we could, I don't know. They're the people that voted me in here to this seat, so I'd like to be available to them at least 3 hours of the week.
Or are you not subbing for Jamie Foxx? Wouldn't it be,
I am.
or for consistently?
I don't know, but
Yeah.
my guess is that it's possible.
And this is extraordinary.
And it's not just me.
Yeah. No,
Like-
well, no, this is extraordinary circumstances. I think the schedule, we've talked about the schedule in parts. It'd be my suggestion that for this 1 or 2 Mondays, that we have to keep these timelines to meet our deadlines at this time. But it's open for discussion amongst the committee. Peter Bevan.
Yeah, I sympathize, Corey, with your situation, and we're all in that boat, you know, but we're talking about unusual circumstances here. It's just 1 week. And I'm subbing in here today. I don't know whether I will be called back again out of necessity or whether I will choose to be back here. But this is the whole, you know, the reason we're spending so much time on this is because of the import of the legislation. And I, for one, would be prepared to explain to a constituent that this is an absolutely unusual situation, and I apologize. I'll reschedule your meeting to another time. But you know, we all have priorities. I understand that, Corey.
I'm glad you're bringing it up. Thanks for your comments. And then we remain fluid with the substitution pattern amongst all 3 parties to work together to make sure we have quorum and that we're doing some good work. Next week's going to be could be one of the busiest weeks of our lives for our people on this committee. So strike the drama. But anyway. So at this point, I'm planning to wrap up without anybody wanting to say anything else at this time. We need to stay fluid about Friday afternoon. Again, as soon as this meeting is done, we'll be talking to Justice immediately, and just check your emails, and we'll see if we can get them in on Friday. If at this time, if everybody's okay, I would accept a motion to adjourn. Brad Trivers, meeting is adjourned.